this video, I will talk about the Css border property. Borders can be very useful to enclose an element for purposes of drawing attention to it, and also for enclosing related content to make the page layout more meaningful to the user. Every element is like a box, and the border is the edge of this element or the edge of a box. By default, there is no border. In CSS, a border consists of three different aspects. It consists of a style, a width, and a color. The width is technically not the width of the element, it is the thickness of that border. So we can set the border style property, the border width property, and the border color property. We can set all three of them individually for all four sides. We can also set all three of them using shortcuts. Ultimately, there is one border property that allows us to set the style, width, and color equally. Let's take a look at the individual sides, and I am using the border style property. The border color and the border width follow the same syntax. So if I wanted to style the four sides separately, the properties are border top style, border right style, border bottom style, border left style. It is not border style top, it is border top style. And that would apply for color, it would be border top color. And that would apply for width, it would be border top width. So the border property, then the location, and then either the style, the color, or the width. In CSS, we have the ability to create different styles of the border. Here we see a dotted border, a dash border, a solid border, a double border. One thing I would like to point out, in order to have a double border, the width has to be at least 3 pixels. 1 pixel for the inner border, 1 pixel for the space, and 1 pixel for the outer border. A groove border will shade the sides a little differently depending on the color value. A ridge border will shade the outer area a little differently depending on the border color. An inset border will shade the left and top differently depending on the border color, and the outset border will shade the right and bottom differently depending on the border color value. I would also like to point out, as the width of these borders increases, you will also see a dramatic difference in how this border style looks. We can set shortcuts, and these shortcuts are the same as the shortcuts for the padding property and the margin property. If I wanted to set a border style of 4 different values, I could use the border hyphen style property, set it to 4 different values. The order in which those values would be applied would be top, right, bottom, left. These go clockwise. Notice that these values are not comma separated. They are space separated. If we were to set the border style property to 3 values, how those values would be applied? The first value would be applied to the top, the second value would be applied to the right and left, the third value would be applied to the bottom. If the border style property was set to 2 values, the first value would be applied to the top and bottom, the second value will be applied to the right and left. Let me just comment, this makes a very nice style. If the border style property was set to 1 value, all 4 sides would have the same value. This syntax would apply to border color and border width also. Should you wish to have a symmetrical border, meaning the style is the same on all 4 sides, the color is the same on all 4 sides, and the width or thickness is the same on all 4 sides, you can use the single border property. and that would be set to 3 values: a value for the style, a value for the color, a value for the width. It does not matter in which order these values are applied. The browser understands because they are all drastically different. So here we see an example of a 5-pixel red dotted border. There might be times when you want to remove a border. How you would do that is set the border style to none or set the border property to none. I would like to point out we also have a Css Outline Property. That does not add width or height to the element, as the border property does. It acts the same, it looks the same, and the syntax is the same, except that rather than using the border word, you would use the outline word. When you start developing your page layout, it is very useful to see the edges of your content. What I do as a debugging mechanism is I will put the outline on my element so that I can accurately see where it begins and where it ends in order to further adjust things such as margin and padding. So this is the CSS border property.